Hi there guys and girls, what's going on? My name is Billy Joe and I am back with a new video today. Now today, as you've probably seen by the video title, we're going to be talking about Battlefield 4. Now I'll try and keep this video relatively short, but as a full review that I've decided to do on this game, it will be quite lengthy. So if you're in for the ride and you want to pick a certain topic or area of discussion about this game, which I'm going to cover, they should be on screen now and you'll just be able to click one of them and they will take you to the part of the video where I discuss about that. So there's a number of topics which I'll discuss in this video, but there's some things I need to outline before we actually get going. The first of these being the fact that a lot of this is my personal experience and preference, and that of people I know as well. So I can't really comment on your individual experiences when it comes to certain topics such as optimization and general compatibility and gameplay performance, but I can comment about my experience so far as a player and the things I've experienced in the game, and that kind of stands for most things as well, even balancing the classes. So I can only go on what I personally know, but that's not to say that you guys can't have your input as well. Just comment in the comments section down below if there's anything you disagree on, or you think you disagree or you agree, or a topic that you think I missed, or a certain point you think I missed that you'd like to just throw in there for anyone else, and maybe even start a discussion up with some people down below. Now there is quite a range of topics that I'm going to cover in this full review of Battlefield 4, and I'll just say now at the beginning of this entire video that if you're looking for a single player review or something along the lines of that, I will only be covering multiplayer in this particular video. So why am I only covering multiplayer? Well, it's something which I feel needs to be addressed first. I think it's one of those, it's the mode that people most look forward to on a Battlefield game, because that's what Battlefield has become more than anything, is a fantastic online epic scale warfare game, which I think obviously specialises, especially when it comes to multiplayer. That's not to say that single player is bad, but that's for another video and another time. So, multiplayer, let's get on with it. First off, I'll go into the game and not actually anything to do with classes, etc., balancing, and my personal opinions, and we'll just talk about graphic looks. The gameplay you're seeing at the moment I think was on high/ultra custom preset, because on ultra I had some weird input lag and I managed to turn a few options off, and that's kind of what I came up with, and it looks just as sexy in my opinion. And I played on a wide range of maps as well, so it's not just one map, so you'll be seeing a range of different maps, because I thought if I varied the gameplay it might keep you interested. But with this type of video, it's one of those videos which I personally believe that you kind of alt-tab out in the background and kind of listen to me babble on about the game until I say something that catches your interest. That's is at least what I do anyway when I listen to these full reviews. But this is my first ever full review, so we'll see how it goes. But first off, graphic intensity in the game. I've run you through the settings I played on. I'll run you through a bit of my hardware, because we're talking about the PC version here. In general, is I play it based on a 7870 2GB, slightly overclocked, nothing special, a FX 8320 processor, 8 gigs of RAM. It's not the most extreme build you would ever imagine, by any stretch of the imagination. So being able to play this game on the settings I do on about 50 to 60 FPS average, even on the bigger scale maps especially for some reason, more than the actual close quarter maps, I can say that the optimization in this game and graphic intensity is very nice and very well balanced. Now, in the game's release we had a lot of issues. I personally had a lot of issues that really pissed me off and annoyed me. They held me back, several game crashes, etc, etc. These since then have started to be fixed quite well. I personally don't suffer from crashes anymore, and some of the bugs and latency lag have been ironed out by patches and updates, which I do credit the development team for. Now, another thing to notice about the game is, let's just say, the particle effects. Particle effects in this play a big role in the engine and the graphics themselves. In the dynamic weather system which has been implemented into the game, which I really do like, and I think should be implemented into a whole range of games in the future as we talk about next generation games. I think that a dynamic weather system is one of those things which eventually I hope to see is something which is kind of like a basic or a standard that is implemented into most modern day games at a later date. I'd love to see that because I think it adds something to the game and a new dynamic to the gameplay. So particles play a big part of that in the new Frostbite 3 engine and the graphics themselves. You know, the particle effects, even the rain you're seeing on screen now, is very important to the immersion of the player. Now that's especially relevant when we talk about Paracel Storm and the maps like that. You go from certain particle effects and they change, they get added as you play through the map, and it completely changes the whole vibe of the map and the whole look of the map as the storm hits. Now the particles that the Frostbite 3 engine enables the player to do, the game to change and enhance as you're playing it, is something which I think is one of those things which I've already said should be implemented into a whole range of games, because it really is good. Now one thing I would have liked to have seen, which I haven't seen, but obviously this is a tip for Battlefield 5, if Dice aren't going to listen to this, ignore me. I was going to say that for maybe a later game, it would be cool to have a range of maps that could either be played on a random set of night or day, such as I came up with the concept that the Siege of Shanghai map would be an absolutely fantastic map to play at night time as well as daytime. So maybe a dynamic weather system there where it would start off at dusk and actually then move to night time. I think the lighting effects they could have done in the skyscraper, etc. There's a whole range and varied range of things that could have been really coolly implemented there. It's a range of different maps on Battlefield 4 instead of just the same weather lighting effects that we have across the board. That's something that the Frostbite 3 engine probably could do. I'm not an expert on the Frostbite 3 engine by any means, but if it's something that could be done, I would really credit them for implementing that in another game, and that's something I feel that they've missed out on in a way because of the way that they've implemented this weather system and all this thing on certain maps. I think that it brings on the feeling that Levolution is a bit of a gimmick and it isn't a set part, and not always a good thing in most maps, which will lead me swiftly on to my next topic of Levolution. Now Levolution is one of those topics where it is a good and bad thing in many ways. Now certain maps such as the Siege of Shanghai can be very disappointing actually when you use or take effect on the Levolution features, because the Levolution actually, in my opinion, makes the gameplay experience worse, especially in Siege of Shanghai. From going on this vertical skyscraper battle to fight for the top layer, which really offers a really dynamic set of gameplay experiences, you're then knocking down a building to create what, in my opinion, is a very grayscale, a very boring, kind of plain landscape, and it's just not as fun and enjoyable for me. Especially just playing as a team. If you're playing as a team, it's a nice thing to actually be able to get your team together and try and you keep combating and fighting for that top layer of security, and you really can have, you know, certain squads going head to head all game trying to take that C objective up in the tower, which I think is something that's really cool. You know, it's one of those things where it keeps you entertained. You know, you have an objective, you have like a cool objective that you can do, and you know, it also emphasises the use on vehicles as well. So, for instance, getting into a helicopter, it kind of emphasises the use of helicopters. You know, you fly up and drop people off onto the roofs. It is a lot more effective than going up one of the 4 elevator shafts, or 6 elevator shafts, I should say, to the top level, because most of the time you'll have enemies camping them out, and I think that it emphasises the reasons why we have vehicles. Now, it's not to say that the Levolution feature is entirely bad, because I know if you're playing on an 800 ticket conquest match, you are going to want a change every now and then, and playing on the same skyscraper, playing in the same map with the same looks, with the, you know, it can get a bit tedious, especially on the longer games. So obviously blowing down the tower and really changing the dynamic of the whole entire map will change your gameplay experience, and probably will spice things up so don't get too bored if you're not having the most enthralled ride of your life during that game. So I can understand it in certain ways, and I like the implementation of naval warfare as well, but we'll go on to that later. So back to Levolution. On some maps I believe it does really well, such as Paracel Storm. It implements absolutely fantastically into the game, and it really does immerse you in the map and your surroundings as a whole. You go from having naval warfare on a jet ski, riding across relatively calm seas throughout islands, fighting for objectives, and then all of a sudden a really goddamn sinister storm really just comes over the whole battlefield, and the whole dynamic and the whole look of the map changes. And that's thanks to Frostbite 3. The graphics are just immense. Even the water texture is mwah in this game. I wouldn't even know where to start when I was talking about the water texture. They've really put a lot of effort in it, you know, really good. In the beta we saw that the underwater, when you're underwater, was really unfinished, unpolished, and was pretty goddamn weird when you went underwater. But now they've actually fixed that, and it looks pretty goddamn sexy in my opinion, even underwater. If you haven't got the best system, it does make your system lag a little bit, I will admit. I've seen on lower systems be played, and when they dip their head under the water, it's kind of like, and a bit of a stutter. But that's something which a lot of games, when you have to render a new environment all of a sudden, you know, as fast as possible, do suffer from. But it's not that big of a thing on Battlefield 4 because of the optimization. But Levolution, apart from the big map changing effects, which for me some maps don't seem to have as good effects as others, such as the dam. The dam that you can blow down on the Langkang Dam map, I think that's how you say it, I'm not even sure, is not really that effective, to be honest. It's kind of, you know, you can blow it down and watch it, but I've only ever noticed it if I'm actually looking for it. For instance, if I'm just playing, you know, getting in the game, getting in the battle, I'm not looking around to see a dam fall down in the background and pretty much cover about 1/100th of the maps. You know, it doesn't really have that much effect. There's no water, there's no tidal wave, there's nothing. It's just rubble falling down to a smaller, very small area of the map, and that's on maps like that. It starts to become a little bit of a gimmick, not actually something which it was hyped up to be, which is a bit of a shame in a lot of ways, but that's how Levolution has panned out to be in most maps. Now, the cool little features of Levolution, especially on the Siege of Shanghai, I'll use that as an example here, is the fact that, such as raising the bollards. Raising the bollards is an absolutely fantastic feature, and things like that, closing doors, opening gates, closing shutters on shops, are all really cool features, because while you're in that really close combat, close quartered infantry warfare, doing things like that can really help your team out actually, and you'll be surprised. For instance, I'll take the game mode obliteration, since I'll be moving on to game modes very swiftly. We'll be talking about obliteration. When you're on the Siege of Shanghai map and your enemies get into a vehicle and they try and bomb it down that road over to your side of the tower, etc., and you want to stop them, what's the best thing you can do? Yeah, you can try and stop them by shooting them, etc., etc., but the amount of times I've had them just go straight past my allies, straight past me, I'm trying to catch up, they're too fast, plant the bomb, they pretty much walk home with the victory. Raising the bollards and being aware of, you know, the things, little things you can change on the map really does help in certain game modes like that. Such as raising the bollards would stop the vehicle, meaning they'd have to get out, and chances are if you're trying to get there on foot, it is a hell of a lot harder to make it across half the Siege of Shanghai map on foot than it is in a fast quad or an ATV or a MRAP vehicle. So, you know, small dynamic changes in the map such as that, for me, are something which really makes some game modes really enjoyable and dynamic, depending on which map you're playing. So, in a way, Levolution is also a very good thing, and I think in the next Battlefield, or, you know, in the next addition to this franchise, I'd like to see, you know, a more emphasis on the smaller things like that, and more wide range of features like that being implemented into the game, which we're allowed to use as players. I would really enjoy that. I would, you know, it's something which you'd be able to use to benefit in certain game modes, and I think on the Siege of Shanghai especially, and the reason they chose it for the beta is to actually demonstrate the uses and the reasons of why the Levolution features are so cool, which they really did. Although some of the big features aren't as cool and are kind of, in my opinion, quite pointless, the smaller features really do kind of make up for that in many ways, and on some game modes can make it very enjoyable. But I said I was going to go on to the game modes, so without further ado, let's go on to the game modes. The game modes, well, we have Conquest, Conquest Large, Rush, etc., etc. Now, you're probably thinking, have you been referring to a certain game mode throughout this whole entire video? Yes. I'm a Rush player myself, I enjoy playing Rush. I do enjoy playing Conquest, but Conquest is one of those things which I will only play if I have a group of friends online and we can all go in a squad together and play, because then it becomes a very objective based thing, and you go from objective to objective, capturing them, and it offers a wide range of gameplay experiences. For instance, you can go any direction you want on the map, do whatever you want, you know, have fun, blah blah blah, and with a group of friends that's absolutely fantastic, and you can pretty much explore, do what you want, have fun, blah blah blah. However, when you're by yourself, it's kind of boring, it's pointless, unless you've got a team that's communicating, being very efficient with each other, you know, and there's a good battle, and there's areas of certain conflicts where you can go with your assault rifle and you know you're going to get into a bit of conflict, then it becomes very long and tedious running around to the objectives, maybe getting a few kills and dying. So that's where Rush comes in. Rush, the way that it's set out on all the maps pretty much, from what I've witnessed so far, it's very specific. Now what I mean by that is the areas of map chosen are very specific. Now you might think, okay, what does that mean? And what I mean by that is the areas of map are laid out to funnel you in a certain direction towards your objective when you play Rush. So there's like no reason to run away from the enemy and sit around your own spawn. There's just no reason. The objectives are very clearly laid out, and your team pretty much has no choice but to be good, because they have to go for the objective. They're funneled to go. That's the only objectives of that game in a certain limited space of area is to go for those objectives. So how really can your teammates be bad or inefficient? Well, they really kinda can't. And that's what I like about Rush, is the fact that anyone can pretty much be good at it. It's a really focused and down-to-earth game mode, and it can be really enjoyable at the same time. You can still work in that squad environment, trying to take certain flanking routes just to try and cut off the enemy, and you gotta really think tactically about it as well, and use the space. Although you're funneled in to a certain confined space and you have to push forward, as a group, and it can sometimes be a bit like D-Day to try and take the objective, there is other ways around it as well which can be really goddamn awesome. And you working as a squad might flank the enemy, take out a few of the ones, and then suppressing your guys down there, giving them just enough time to plant that objective, which is something really cool. Moving on to the next ones, we have TDM and Squad Deathmatch. I enjoy playing these if I'm just in it for a quick amount of XP, maybe I want to level up a gun, get some attachments, etc, etc, then I'll go on TDM, 32 players. They're kind of nice areas of most maps which they've planted the TDM on. It's got a whole range of stuff, and some of the evolution features are still accessible as well in the TDM. So it's really good. In my opinion, it's a good, fast-paced game mode, which if you want to go earn some quick XP, then just hop onto one of those and you'll be done in no time. Now, if you want a mix of Conquest as well as Close Quarter maps, then Domination is probably something which you'll enjoy a lot more. I enjoy Domination personally for the simple fact that it's kind of like Conquest, where you have the option to kind of have a little bit of freedom and go around your objectives, etc. But it is in a close quartered environment, so you get into a combat a lot faster, and there's no walking around, and some teammates being aimless and not doing anything to help the team out, which can sometimes be the case on Conquest, such as getting in a helicopter, crashing it, waiting on that stupid spawn screen, getting in a helicopter, crashing it, and it's kind of just like, okay, we know you want to learn how to fly a helicopter here, but the team needs to kind of advance and use the helicopter to take the objectives. That's that type of thing. But that's one of those things, dependent on the players you have in your server, I suppose. So last but not least, we'll talk about the class and weapon balancing in the game. Now there's a few issues with the weapon balancing in the game, and being quite frankly honest here, there is some weapons which I personally don't like. I'm not going to name any names. Everyone will have weapons which they don't like or can't use, but everyone seems to kill them with. That kind of happens on every single game. Now that's something which is all very good, but it's player specific, so I can't really comment on that. But personally, there is some weapons which do need to have tweaks done to them, and that's just my personal opinion and personal experience. Now I can only comment on my personal experiences of this, but I think the Ace 23 assault rifle is overpowered in a way, but it's also not overpowered in a way, for the simple fact that what you have to do to unlock it is not that easy. So it's not just getting a certain amount of points as the assault class, which would be fairly straightforward. Anyone could do that. You need to play quite team objectively and get 50 medkit ribbons. So to get these good powered weapons, they have kind of enforced you to do stuff that's going to help your team. So it's like promoting teamwork at the same time, which in my opinion, if you're going to put the time in and do this teamwork ethic to get this good gun, fair enough, use the gun. Weapons I cannot stand, such as the M416 of the assault class, which I find is just diabolical in every aspect when I'm being killed by it for some strange reason. That's something I can't stand, because you don't need to get much score, and it seems to be a lot more powered, a lot more accurate especially, than most of the assault rifles, even in the later sections of that class. So there are some things which, in my opinion, need to be ironed out. But one thing I do want to talk about when it comes to balancing is the starting weapons that were given to most classes at the start. I think they were quite good the way that they did it. Unlike the 16-3 out of Battlefield 3, we had the AK. Now the AK is this weapon where it's pretty powerful. but it's not stupidly powerful. If I was to get my SAR 21, which I unlock later on in the assault class after I've used it for quite a while, and go up against an AK, 9 times out of 10, I personally believe that I would win, because SAR 21 is one of my favourite weapons thus far in the game. And that makes sense. A weapon that you unlock later on in the assault class should have more benefits than the weapon you start out with in the class. That would be the only thing in my eyes, logically, to justify leveling up. So that kind of makes sense. The AK is that kind of nice mix where it's not stupidly underpowered and you can't get anywhere with the weapon, but it's not overpowered as well, and it kind of offers that good baseline weapon, which every now and then I do enjoy going back to and using. So it's kind of that good thing as well in there, and that goes for most of the classes. The sniper rifle that you first get isn't the most overpowered sniper rifle in the world, but it's definitely not the most underpowered, and you can actually get kills with it if you are good at sniping. So that's kind of the balance between there, and I really like what they've done with that, and I think that was a good balancing class-wise when you start off. It was a good decision. Now for me, I personally maintain the motto that if you're going to level up and put the effort and time into leveling up, then you should unlock weapons which are going to give you adequate benefits to match that. You know, there's no point trying to work for ages to unlock these, let's say, the AUG, and the AUG being worse than the start off weapon. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's kind of pointless. You want to work towards better equipment, better weapons, and more benefits as you level up, and that's something I think Battlefield 4 does pretty well. I say pretty well because there's certain things which I think could be kind of changed, you know, a bit modified, I'd say, to just make that balance a little bit better. But personally, on a whole level, I think Battlefield 4 thus far has done it pretty well. But that's pretty much all I've got to say about the game today, guys. If you think I've missed any topics, which I probably have, knowing me, then please do leave a comment down below stating the topic and if you want me to do a video, etc. Or you can even go into it and shed your light on the situation. And another thing I'd probably say is if you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like. This is quite a long video and it takes a long time to plan and come up with these and do these, and a lot of effort to render, etc. As well as adding stuff. So if you could leave a like and show your support, that'd be